I'm with Professor Surinder, Jodhka, Professor of Sociology at Jawaharlal Nehru University here in New Delhi, Rahul Verma, Fellow at the Centre for Policy Research, a think tank in New Delhi, and Yashwant Deshmukh, psephologist, political analyst, and director of C-Voter, the polling agency. And today, of course, this is such an exciting day, not because the results are out, of course, of the 5 state elections. Uttar Pradesh, magnificent results for the Bharatiya Janata Party. It's come back, done very well. We will discuss that, of course, in a minute. But I think the most interesting news has come from Punjab. पूरी तरह से जो ट्रेडिशनल पार्टीज हैं, शिरोमणि अकाली दल, कांग्रेस पार्टी, उनका पूरी तरह से सफाया हुआ है. आम आदमी पार्टी ने जो है झाड़ू चलाई है और पंजाब is now witnessing a brand new type of politics. So let me welcome you all, gentlemen. Welcome to the Print Debates.
Thank you.
Let's start with Punjab, because I think we can discuss UP till the cows come home, but I think Punjab is the most fascinating story today. And Professor Jodhka, your first comments on how all the traditional, the big heavyweights of Punjab politics have lost. Charanjit Chedni, the former chief minister, he's already the outgoing chief minister. The Badal, senior Parkar Singh Badal has lost from Lambi. Subir Badal has lost. His brother-in-law Bikram Majitia has lost. Captain Amrinder Singh from Patiala has lost. Navjot Singh Sidhu has lost. I mean, all these people who have just completely been wiped out of Punjab.
See, Punjab has been in this moment of churning. And I think it started with the farmers' movement. And farmers' movement, even though when farmers went to contest election, they lost, which I think is not a bad thing, because that is not the way politics works. And they thought because we were popular with people of Punjab, we'll also win elections. But I think farmers' movement nevertheless played a very, very critical role in delegitimizing the kind of politics that was institutionalized in the region for a long time. So churning happened in other regions much before. But in Punjab, it started at some level with farmers' movement, even though already in some sense at ground level democratizations had happened. And Punjab has been in a sense monopoly of the traditional Jat Sikh elite from Malwa region. And that in some sense completely lost that hegemonic power they had over kind of common mind in Punjab. And with farmers' movement, it was completely gone. And I think AAP could present itself as the Badlav, that we are the change and we can bring about that change. Chennai also tried, Congress also tried, Sidhu in some sense tried, but Congress thought that, people were obliged to vote for them and they were fighting with each other till the last day. And this is not how you can win election. This is not how you fight election. You need united force. I still think Congress had a chance at one level, but then they kind of made sure that, they did not win. And they kind of, people thought that there was an alternative available. And, this Sarkar of Thekedaris, and people who kind of come to power and then they make money on the name of democracy. This should go. And I think the kind of conscientization that farmers movement had done, it had gone very far. It had gone deep, and particularly kind of marginalized communities in the villages. And I think COVID also played its own role.
Right.
Could not be delivered the kind of things that they were requiring, and everyone was angry. I mean, that should have also shown in UP. It's not shown there. But I think in Punjab particularly, I think all that came together and everyone was saying that we have seen this, we have seen that. This time we want Badlav.
Let's do the
third kind of party and emerge. Already it was there.
Right.
Punjab, that emerged as an alternative.
So Yashwant Deshmukh, this question of Badlav, jo Janta ne aaj the resounding mandate in favor of change. Now, these two messages that come from UPU have seen how actually the Samajwadi Party has done much better. And just some statistics, Uttar Pradesh mein out of a 403 seat house, BJP has got 260, dropped 61 seats. एक दो सीटों का अभी भी फर्क हो सकता है. Samajwadi Party 138 plus 85, BSP Congress of course 2 and 1. और पंजाब के अंदर Aam Aadmi Party 90, Congress 17, Akali Dal 7. Now, this message कि एक तरफ यूपी के अंदर आप bipolarity ला रहे हैं और पंजाब के अंदर पूरी तरह से सफाया हो गया है traditional parties का. What is this message that the people are trying to give?
I think people wanted a change, and these results would have happened 5 years back itself, actually, if RSS would not have engineered the last movement Hindu swing towards Congress, just in order to. This time BJP was in full blow. They just pulled back all their 7-8% votes. and here you go. And we discussed this, Jyoti, and I said that, with 40% vote share, where exactly they are going to land up in their seat share, I am not very sure. Or मैं दूध का जला था, छाछ भी फूंक के पी रहा था, मैं भूल रहा था कि because I said that Aam Aadmi Party is sweeping Punjab 5 years back and it didn't materialize. So I was like holding my horses that okay, I should not be repeating it. Just leave it at the vote share and leave it. Where the seat share is going to go, I am not very sure. But having said that, there was an overwhelming desire for change, and the change not from just the present set of regime, but the change from the overall the way the politics was working in Punjab. There was a huge sentiment for change 5 years back. There was huge sentiment. They had the groundswell, but probably they could not convert the groundswell because of the real political reasons, that they did not have presence that much on the ground in terms of network and the people on the ground. And let's face the fact that 5 years back, that the Aam Aadmi Party became the leader of opposition, and that the party which was in power actually landed at number 3 position was itself a huge message that Punjabis were trying to give. And the Congress so damn messed up with that message. Congress was is such an expert actually in messing up their own fortunes that I'm hardly surprised even in Uttarakhand today, Jyoti, in that way. With one single thing, they have messed up 2 states, by ensuring that Harish Rawat lands up in Punjab for 1 year and keeps occupied there.
Absolutely.
And Navjot Singh Sidhu carries the massacre against Channi day in and day out. Poor Channi was not fighting with opposition, he was fighting with Navjot Singh Sidhu.
Absolutely.
So Channi ensured that Sidhu loses, Sidhu ensured Channi loses, Badals ensured captain loses, captain ensured Badals lose. Everybody ensured everybody else loses. And that's where the royal sum of 90 seats that we are staring at. That is because everybody went for a meltdown. And if everybody is heading for the meltdown, somebody has to rise up. And somebody is going to benefit out of it. And that somebody is not by just default. But I think credit where due. I think Arvind Kejriwal gets the credit. Bhagwant Singh Maan gets the credit. No matter how much the media, a section of media tried to make fun of it. For all practical matters, he was 2 times member of parliament. And he is a very, very popular guy. And whatever the way his personality, is being portrayed in the sections of the media.
As a comedian, sometimes he's drunk.
He might be a comedian, Jyoti. He is not corrupt to start with. And people are willing to pick up a comedian if he is not corrupt. That's the bottom line.
No, but this image that, वो कभी-कभी वो थोड़ी सी वो ज़्यादा पी भी लेते हैं. This thing that
पंजाब में कौन पीना बुरी बात नहीं आती. I mean, come to think of it, drinking is not as a taboo as that we call it in the Gangetic Belt as it is in Punjab. Let's be honest about it. Whatever was being said about him, I think we were doing a big section of media was doing a lot gross injustice to the fact. And yes, in our tracker, the Aam Aadmi Party's number went up by 4 or 0.5 points the day he was declared as the chief ministerial candidate.
Yeah.
Before that, even though Aam Aadmi Party was still tracking around 33, 34%, it was not leading in 38, 39% kind of thing. So declaring him as the CM candidate did benefit Aam Aadmi Party. Arvind Kejriwal did the right thing. And now it is historic because 75 years, Rahul, correct me if I am wrong, but I guess let's leave aside Janata Dal and Janata Party because that were Bhanumati ka pitara, kahin ka kunba, kahin ka roda, joda kunba. But it is only the 4th party in 75 years of history of India after Congress, BJP and CPM, which is going to rule more than one state at a point of time. And that's a big statement. And considering their vote share in Uttarakhand, considering their vote share in Goa, where they damaged Congress a lot, and that they are likely to become a rallying point for the anti-BJP votes,
right.
I think the battle of 24 has just started. Only trouble with that battle is between the opposition camp, who is going to be the main contender to the BJP.
Right. Now, Rahul, my question to you is the following. Everybody said that Punjab, or everybody says Punjab is a border state, a frontier state, borders Pakistan, very delicate, very fragile. We have to be very careful about it. So, Aam Aadmi Party ko hum ye state nahi de sakte ya saap sakte because, abhi 10 saal हुए ये पार्टी अभी भी नई पार्टी आई है. It's not very predictable in its politics. At the end of the day, Congress Party or Akali Dal plus, we know what their politics is like. अब आज की तारीख में people of Punjab have said कि nothing doing, हम ये सब हमको नहीं पता, but you are now going to rule this state.
True. So whoever was doing this talking was living outside Punjab, right? As you rightly mentioned, in Punjab, this was not the sentiment. See, we have to also understand things in context. For 75 odd years since independence, Punjab was basically, in a party competition sense, was a duopoly of Congress and Shiromani Akali Dal. Even when after the political turmoil of 80s and 90s, when the normal competition restored in 1997, Congress ruled for 10 years and the Shiromani Akali Dal ruled for 10 years. Aam Aadmi Party, the first state it break in after Delhi was Punjab. In 2014, their 4 MPs came from Punjab. So in 2014, basically the set pattern of competition was already disturbed. So Punjab, unlike UP, which is becoming bipolar from multipolar, Punjab was becoming multipolar from bipolar. So AAP was placed in a good position to basically take advantage of the emerging situation. Now, what was the emerging situation? First, Shiromani Akali Dal could not come out of its image of corruption and other allegations with drug rackets and other things. The second, Congress Party, which basically won under the leadership of Captain Amrinder Singh, made a mess of it. We have discussed it several times. Captain walks out, forms a new party. Shiromani Akali Dal BJP coalition also breaks in. So there is now a further sort of fragmentation of vote. AAP in that situation, in last 6 months, what it was doing, it was setting the agenda of political competition in Punjab. Not only did they first announce that we are going to have Dalit deputy CM, which made other parties to basically do something. Shiromani Akali Dal got BSP, then Punjab, then Congress was forced to get a Dalit chief minister. Second, Aam Aadmi Party was the first one to announce its chief ministerial candidate. Once AAP announced that Bhagwant Mann is our chief minister face, then Rahul Gandhi goes to Punjab and says now our face is going to be Charanjit Singh Channi. So once you allow any political party to set the terms of debate, then they are already in pole position. And given that the other 2 parties were discredited to an extent, that so there is now a consolidation of voters behind the Aam Aadmi Party. So with just 40% seats, they are actually winning 75% of the 40% of votes. They are winning 75 or 80% of the seats, and that's largely happening because the state has become multipolar. So Congress is now 23%, and Shiromani Akali Dal is around 15-17%. Right, so it's basically the emerging political competition shaped environment in which AAP could take advantage.
Okay, Professor Jodhka, let's broaden this discussion and let's look at the messages from this entire election. Now, if you look at Uttar Pradesh, pro-incumbency in Uttar Pradesh, anti-incumbency in Punjab. But BJP, I mean, are you surprised that the so-called dead heat of Goa and Uttarakhand that we had talked about in the after the exit polls actually have favored the BJP, that the BJP has gone out and it is in pole position to win these states as well?
I think one thing very clearly emerges from this is that organization matters a lot. I think if you were to compare Congress in Punjab and BJP in UP, Congress had no organization at the local level. People were not communicating to each other. Leadership at the center was kind of going in one direction. Leaders within the state were going in different directions. And somehow they thought that, people were obliged to vote for them. It doesn't work like that. I mean, we are in a very, very competitive democratic politics. And that competitive politics at some level makes organization, money, and various other things very, very critical. Leadership becomes very critical, not only at the local level, but at all the level, at the state level, at the national level, their coordination. and then obviously kind of, some kind of secure, solid vote base.
Right.
BJP's own vote base is very solid. That in some sense, core vote base, even if it is 25%, that 25% they can depend upon. No
Right.
other party has that kind of core solid vote base. And then you can mobilize 5%, 10%, 15%. As Rahul was saying, with 40%, you can get as much as you wish to in kind of multipolar kind of electoral.
But what about the larger picture? If you look at the larger picture, why do you think that the BJP has been able to keep Uttar Pradesh, for example? Why do you think it is winning back Goa? It's doing, and Uttarakhand and Manipur. Actually, I don't have the final numbers for Manipur, but it seems to have done very well in Manipur too. So what is the message from this election, this overall message?
I mean, politically, I think people are still kind of okay with the existing establishment. I think if the central government is pro-incumbency, I think in favor of the central government rather than at the local kind of level. And because they are kind of at the center and they are very powerful and they are able to control and manage everything in the way they wish to, I think that message goes very far. And because they are not voting only for the local MLA or the chief minister, they are always also voting for the central government, whether it is kind of, you can put face of Modi or BJP or the larger kind of, party in power. So
Right.
that is the kind of impression I have. I don't really work on UP.
Sure.
And I think others will be able to.
Yeah, no, but my question, no, absolutely. But so, Yashwant, can I ask you this question? So the BJP has dropped about 61 seats in UP, about 260 right now. The Samajwadi Party has gained about 85 seats. It's right now at 138. What is the message from this election?
I think from the messaging perspective, it is a pro-incumbent verdict. First of all, let's accept that the delivery of many of the welfare schemes is what has made the impact in particularly the states where BJP has won, and there are 4 of them, not just one. Mm-hmm. And after changing 3 chief ministers, if the BJP manages to win Uttarakhand, and after losing 60, 70, 50 seats, and so much of COVID-related things and going around and everything, if BJP manages to win UP, and after with so much of anger against the local establishment, they managed to win Goa, I think somebody has to acknowledge that this pro-incumbent verdict has a lot to do with Narendra Modi and Narendra Modi alone. I mean, as a party, I realize that yes, BJP is well-oiled, much more well-functioning and all that. But I genuinely believe that BJP would have been in grave crisis in Uttar Pradesh if Narendra Modi would not have put everything in the campaign as an individual. Mm-hmm. And why I am saying that the numbers that you are looking, it's bipolarization is fine. That in the tracker we have been saying all along. And the fact that BJP was so down on the confidence that they did not chop on the tickets of the non-performing MLAs, which is their proven strategy in other states. In UP, they almost renominated almost everybody, And if you look into the number of seats they have lost today, you will see the majority of them would be not 90% of them or more would be the non-performing MLAs. So I guess that Prime Minister Modi's image has still worked and delivered for the BJP. Is the double engine, as Professor said, that double engine perception that okay, if we vote for Modi, probably the percolation of that impact is going to happen. Is the vote for the free ration, by the way? Is the vote by the females? We are so preoccupied by the binaries of the religion and the caste arithmetic in UP and Bihar. We are forgetting the fact it is the females of UP who have delivered this kind of verdict.
So let me ask you, Yashwant, let me ask you, do you see in your tracker that women have voted in large numbers for Modi?
Yes. And that's what we have been reporting all along, that the issue of free ration, issue of the chhat that they got, issue of the toilets that they got, issue of the money that they got in the account, that comes more in the agenda of the female voters. But the issue of the caste equation, issue of the religious polarization, that comes more in the male voters in Uttar Pradesh. So females have actually voted using their head, while the male voters of UP are still struck in the binaries of of caste polarization and the religious polarization and so on and so forth. So at least I am very clear. This is a very, very historic mandate, considering the fact that we are now almost sure that there are vote banks, new vote banks that are emerging, which are kind of diluting the communal and the caste arithmetic lines purely on the issue of delivery of the schemes. I understand that majority of those schemes are kind of social welfare schemes. You know, राशन के ऊपर यार 75 साल की आजादी के बाद में हम राशन फ्री मिल रहा है, इस पे वोट डाल रहे हैं. Come to think of it, but at the same time, somebody was saying in another program that it is a verdict for bulldozer, Baba. It is a verdict for bulldozer and law. Yes, law and order was a matter, but I refuse to believe that it was the bulldozer which was in the mind of female voter. Law and order was the offshoot, or law and order agenda was the byproduct of the toilets that were made, Jyoti. Among the rural female folks, you know, biggest number of the crime, particularly the sexual crimes, happen against the females in rural India when they are going out in the field after the dark or wee morning hours of the early morning.
Right.
And having a toilet at home is not just about hygiene and dignity. It is directly having an impact on the lowering the sexual crimes against the rural women. And that is more important than the bulldozer. BJP might like to believe that they vote because of the bulldozer, but at least in the data and the understanding of the perception, I am very clear. Females of UP did not vote for the bulldozer. Yes, they voted for on the law and order issue, which was an indirect benefit of the toilets.
Okay, Rahul, the question to you is, if women are voting for, if they're voting for law and order in UP, and if they're voting for these for deliveries with the toilets or gas or ration, but what happened to in that case? And if the women are becoming a separate vote bank, almost becoming a vote bank, then why are they voting for BJP and not for ladki hu, lad sakti hu of the Congress party? That's the first question. The second question is, Keshav Prasad Maurya, the deputy chief minister, was trailing when reports last came in. And actually, is that linked, do you think, to the fact that the Samajwadi Party actually has done its best showing so far, about 37% of the vote? I mean, it's another question that it cannot overtake the BJP, but the Samajwadi Party has done very well.
Okay, so let me start with the second question first, and then come to the female voter. First point, and you asked this to Yashwantji, and also Professor Jodhka. What is the bigger message of these verdicts, right? So the first big message, if you take Goa, Manipur, and Uttarakhand, Congress party was the main contender, and Congress basically failed to come back. So the first message is, wherever BJP is going to compete against Congress, it's more likely to win. The Congress party at the moment is not showing any signs of fight back. The reasons could be different, but in each of these states, Congress had a good chance to basically fight back and win those states. And BJP has just win it comfortably. Now let's come back to the crucial state of UP and Keshav Prasad Maurya and SP doing well. Now, what's happening in UP, and you talked about 60 seats declining. See, it's not that SP is doing well. Of course, it will do, because there is a bipolarity developing. So BJP won 312 seats with 37% vote. And now with 42 or 43% vote, it is going to basically win around 260 seats. So what is the bipolarity going to do? It will create basically a safe barrier for BJP. So BJP may not touch 300, but it will make it harder for parties like SP to beat BJP, because the base with BJP manages to achieve in Lok Sabha election is very, very high. BJP won 50% vote share in UP. So even when it comes down by 10 percentage point, it's in a winning position. So SP, yes, managed to do well, managed to improve its vote share from, say, 29-30 odd percent to 37-38%, but that's not going to be enough. This is the glass ceiling which parties like SP and Rashtriya Janata Dal are going to face. You are going to see a trend of bipolarity emerging in states where there is a significant Muslim population and BJP a significant player. You saw this in Bihar, you saw this in Bengal, you saw this in UP. This is basically a process of consolidation and counter consolidation. Now, coming back to the gender, what's happening there. See, BJP used to have a gender disadvantage till 2014, and that's changing. That's changing because of many reasons. And in this election, in Uttarakhand, in UP, in Manipur, the post-poll surveys basically suggest BJP has a gender advantage, basically more females voting for them. Now, that could be happening for three reasons. I think the first one is to do with beneficiaries, as Yashwantji talked about. The second is basically the law and order thing. So it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, but BJP in its campaign basically pushed this line that इससे पहले तो लड़कियां 7 बजे से पहले बाहर नहीं निकल सकती थी और वो कॉलेज जाती थी तो छेड़खानी होती थी. So somewhere they basically managed to push this line. And the third point, and I think what might be happening, and we don't have good data, there is an emotive connect with Prime Minister Modi among female voters, much like perhaps Prime Minister Indira Gandhi used to have in her time in 70s and 80s.
Okay. Professor Jodhka, I have two questions for you. The first is ये जो आम आदमी पार्टी की जादू की जप्पी है पंजाब के अंदर. Now, in a sense, some would say that Kejriwal is following the Modi brand of politics. Number one, that's the first question to you. And the second is about Western UP. We saw that the farmers' agitation, you referred to it earlier as well, that did not translate into vote bank politics. But the farmers' agitation was also heavily drawn from Western UP. We will talk about what happened in Western UP. But somehow, do you feel that the BJP has also done so well in Western UP? But what happened to the farmers' movement? It's completely fizzled out. They didn't seem to have any impact.
I think second question first. If the farm laws were not taken back and the same kind of campaign as the farmers did in West Bengal, UP could have been a different ball game. We don't really know. I mean, I think they did intelligent move by taking laws back at right moment. And I think otherwise UP elections perhaps would have had a different kind of, dynamics. I don't really know where it would have gone, but I think definitely farmers had acquired a lot of moral capital. And if they had gone in mass that don't vote for BJP, vote for any other party, it would have had some impact. If 2%, okay, 3%, 5%, and that would have made a lot of difference. And I think BJP had some kind of internal understanding, and that's why they decided to take the farm laws back, even though the official position is very different.
Okay.
About the Punjab thing, see, Punjab, I think as Yashwantji was saying, AAP won because of Punjab leadership. Kejriwal would want to take credit for that, but I think internally Punjab has had a very kind of strong traction for AAP from day one, as we saw 4 MPs being elected from Punjab when they could not get even 1 MP from Delhi, even though they were in power here. Even next time they could not get a single MP from Delhi, and Bhagwant Mann still won. And as Yashwant is saying, in the last election also, AAP would have won. So AAP has a very kind of local Punjab-centric kind of, traction and mobilization.
So does that mean that they don't really care for Arvind Kejriwal as much as the fact that they care for Bhagwant Mann and other local leaders?
I think so. The right question to ask perhaps would be, now with Punjab becoming an AAP state, what would happen to AAP and what would happen to Arvind Kejriwal? Yeah. So in relation to Punjab, of course, Arvind Kejriwal is the leader of the party, and everybody knows that he is the president of the party, and all the posters in Punjab started with Arvind Kejriwal's photograph, and Bhagwant Mann becoming the face of party and chief ministerial candidate was the right decision. But at the same time, to say that it is Arvind Kejriwal's party that is one Punjab would also perhaps be a kind of overstatement. Not that it is not true. So right, what one would need to ask at this moment is also that what would Punjab do to AAP? Right? So now that you would have AAP government in a proper state, Delhi is not really a full state, and Punjab compared to Delhi is a much bigger state. And then what would happen to AAP? And this is not something which is very easy to speculate now, but Punjab AAP leadership traditionally has had conflicts with Kejriwal, and many of them were thrown out, and that kind of conflict continues, and it has potential to come back, because Punjabi local political elite, their local base is local base, and they won not because Kejriwal is not like Modi. Right. Their vote came for them and for AAP, Bhagwant Mann, and larger idea of change and Badlav but not for the charismatic figure of Kejriwal. I don't think Kejriwal carries any charisma in Punjab like Modi would carry in UP. So I think that is very clear to me, but we don't really know how will it work out on ground.
That's really interesting that you feel that there is a distinct difference between Kejriwal and Modi, and that Kejriwal doesn't have that charisma like Modi has, at least in Punjab. Yashwant, the question to you is about the Samajwadi Party, and if you can explain why, firstly, you feel that it has done much better, 37% of the vote, it has gained 85 seats. And do you feel that it has somehow hit a glass ceiling, as Rahul was saying earlier, and that it needs to do much more to be able to cross this barrier?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, in our tracker also, when we were telling that Samajwadi Party's individual graph from 22% going up to 34%, and when it plateaued at 34, 35%, and right now they are hovering at around the same level, 34%. Actually, Samajwadi Party on its own about 31% and 3% to the RLD. And so that is making it 34%. And when we said that the glass ceiling, they are unable to breach that glass ceiling, that was largely because the data was clearly showing that this bipolarization, is basically they are getting a default gainer, becoming a default gainer of the process of bipolarization in UP. And the entire swing of the vote was largely happening in the opposition universe. Mm-hmm. We were not, and we were saying it again and again, we are unable to figure out significant swing from BJP to Samajwadi Party. There was significant swing from Bahujan Samaj Party to Samaj. All the Muslims were leaving aside Mayawati and going for Samajwadi Party. Same was happening from the Congress camp. So first of all, the biggest bipolarization started with the complete lock and stock and barrel sweep of Muslim voters from entire opposition sphere towards the Samajwadi Party sphere.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, the MY plus, that plus came only to a limited section of the Jat voters in the Western UP. We said this time and again after the tickets distribution was complete that, the Jat sentiment is overwhelming only to the RLD candidates and only to Jayant Chaudhary. They are not showing the similar enthusiasm for Samajwadi Party and definitely not showing any enthusiasm for the Muslim candidates of Samajwadi Party.
But why not? Why was that transfer not more?
I think, and I said this, but this theory, was told to me by my senior editor Khalid Akhtar, and I have shared this earlier.
Yes.
That the Jat hegemony of being dominant in political and social roles in Western UP was actually dominated by the Muslims in the last 30 years, and particularly on the ticket of Mayawati, because the Jata Muslim combination did deliver. And you remember the maximum number of Muslims got elected to the UP Assembly was when Mayawati became the chief minister. And that was actually directly challenging the Jat leadership in Western UP. The riots became just a cause to express that kind of rivalry, fierce rivalry on holding the turf. Who controls the money? Who controls the local satta? As they call it, dhaus kiski chalegi.
Right.
And as far as that dhaus is concerned, being Jat is a state of mind. It's a Western UP character. It's not about being that belonging to that particular caste, and that is where it mattered the most. And when that thing happened that, okay, we gave BJP the vote in 14, 17 and 19, but somehow that did not deliver power to the Jats. So even without the farmers' agitation, even without the farm laws to start with, if farm laws नहीं भी आए होते ना ज्योति, तो भी जाट इतना ही नाराज होता बीजेपी से जितना इस बार था. लेकिन क्या इतना नाराज था कि वो समाज पार्टी वाली पार्टी को वोट दे उसके मुसलमान कैंडिडेट को वोट दे? No, it was not going to happen. But yes, they had a very, very great sense of affinity towards the RLD. That too because Chaudhary Ajit Singh died. That too after getting defeated. So there was an emotional connect कि चौधरी को हरा के दे दिया, मतलब हरा के नहीं भेजना था. So that affinity, that emotion, that connect worked for Jayant Chaudhary, but that was not delivered to Samajwadi Party. Not that Jayant did not deliver, It was just simply naturally was not coming out.
Akhilesh has to work much harder. He has to try
Of course,
much harder
yes.
to be able to broaden.
Of course, yes. Jyoti, I have minced no words earlier, even on before that. Akhilesh was a beneficiary of the default bipolarization. He did not work hard enough to get this what he got today. I am being very, you know what?
Yeah.
My heart goes out to actually for Priyanka, because in the opposition sphere, she was the hardest working politician on the ground. Akhilesh did not work hard. अखिलेश ने अपने पिताजी जितनी मेहनत करते थे, नेताजी के 10% भी मेहनत की होती ना, रिजल्ट कुछ और होते. अब वो 10% की मेहनत अंत के 3 महीने में नहीं होती ज्योति. वो 10% की मेहनत तब स्टार्ट होती, 90% की मेहनत तब स्टार्ट होती जब उत्तर प्रदेश में घर घर से लाशें निकलनी थी कोविड में.
बिल्कुल.
Forget about going to the COVID people who died out of families of those who died out of COVID. I don't think any opposition leader even visited the home of their own workers who died of COVID. So I have no problem in saying that Akhilesh was default beneficiary of this bipolarization of Uttar Pradesh. He did not work hard. If he would have worked even 10-20% of what his father used to work, there would have been different scenarios.
Right. So the last couple of questions, Rahul, the question to you about the decimation of the Congress party. According to the latest reports, I think they have got only one seat. If you can, we ask this question every time the Congress does badly, but I think this time the Congress has hit a new low. So do you think that there will be rumblings inside the Congress? Do you think that there could be नया Congress इसमें से उत्पन्न हो सकता है कि नहीं?
मुश्किल सवाल है क्योंकि and there are reasons. See, rumblings and murmurs are parties are made up of factions. So rumblings and murmurs हमेशा चलते रहते हैं. नया कांग्रेस उत्पन्न हो सकता है, इसलिए मुश्किल है क्योंकि कांग्रेस के अंदर इस समय कोई भी नेता ऐसा नहीं है. No leader who can even win a state on their own, right? So forget about national party launching, except Bhupinder Hooda. At the moment, Congress does not have any leader who can win a state on its own. And if you can't even form a regional party and win a state, I don't think you are going to go far ahead in that game. But let me first come back to what Yashwant said and again touch the Congress point. I don't think working hard will change things. There are two reasons why
working hard on behalf of the Samajwadi Party in Uttar Pradesh.
Anyone working hard is not all. कई बार ज्यादा पढ़ने से नंबर अच्छे नहीं आ जाते हैं. वो इस वजह से होता है कि पॉलिटिक्स ना टाइम पे चलती है. There is a political moment, right? So क्रिकेट की एनालॉजी में when वीरेंद्र सहवाग is in full form, मैगला कितनी तेज बॉल डालेगा उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, वो बाउंड्री जाएगी. So what do you have to do? It's not just bowling fast and bowling hard. You have to be creative. कोई स्लोअर डालना होगा, कोई गुगली डालनी होगी, कुछ करना होगा. What Akhilesh Yadav and Congress is failing to do is being innovative and creative in their ways. So what Akhilesh did last minute basically get small caste parties and think कि अब तो हमारा कोalition हो गया, अब हमें सारी जातियां वोट दे देंगी. प्रियंका ने भी मतलब मेहनत की, पर आप ये खाली यूपी में क्यों लड़ सकती हूँ कैंपेन क्यों चलाया? यूपी में ही क्यों आप महिलाओं को टिकट दे रहे हैं? तो हो सकता है प्रियंका को एक्चुअली विमेन वोटर्स में कांग्रेस को फायदा हुआ हो, पर आपके पास आपको 2% वोट आ रहे हैं, महिलाओं में 3 या 4% वोट आए होंगे, तो उससे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला ना. योर मैसेज हैज टू सीम क्रेडिबल. इफ यू वर डूइंग द सेम थिंग इन ऑल 5 स्टेट्स देन इट वुड हैव सीम कि हाँ मतलब ये हर जगह सीरियस है. यूपी में आपको जीतना ही नहीं था तो आप वहां कितने भी तमाशे कर लो, ऐसे थोड़ी ना कोई विश्वास कर लेगा. सो नाउ कांग्रेस एंड कांग्रेस लीडरशिप, whoever thinks कि नया कांग्रेस बनना है, कुछ होना है, they have like the shake-up has to be within the party. There has to be now a moment of rebellion. Without rebellion, you can't get a change.
ये रिबेलियन की तो हम बात करेंगे, लेकिन जो आप समाजवादी पार्टी के बारे में कह रहे थे कि वर्किंग हार्ड इज नॉट इनफ, तो अखिलेश, तो आपको क्या लगता है कि अखिलेश whether he worked hard, did not work hard, it would not have made any material difference to the result?
तो हो सकता है 120 के बजाय 150 सीट जीत गए होते. So if you like, you have to now invent a new language. What Akhilesh is doing is basically picking an old syllabus and trying to pass a new exam. मेरे को कई लोगों ने बोला इलेक्शन के दौरान कि Akhilesh is doing the same thing what BJP did in 2014, got smaller caste parties and now they will stretch the alliance and win. तो मैंने बोला वो तो 2014 का syllabus था ना. You are contesting election in 2022. You will have to come up with new ideas. What did BJP do in 2014? It stitched the caste alliances, but what it is doing in 2022, it is mobilizing women voters, right? So they are basically moving ahead with a new political category and political constituency every time. That's how you have to innovate. You have to be one step ahead of your opponent, not one step behind and think you can beat a 50% vote share.
And play catch up.
क्रिकेट एनालॉजी में केवल इतना ही मैं और जोड़ना चाहूंगा राहुल, बहुत बढ़िया बात आपने बोली कि आपको वेरिएशंस डालने पड़ेंगे लगातार। 5 ओवर का कोटा अगर 2020 में भी मिल रहा है तो इंसान डालेगा, लेकिन अखिलेश यादव जी के साथ में था कि सब्स्टिट्यूट जितने भी हैं बॉलिंग करें 19 ओवर तक, मैं तो 20वें ओवर में ही बॉलिंग करने आऊंगा। फॉरगेट अबाउट वेरिएशन, ही डिड नॉट इवन bowl his full quota of 5 overs. My problem is, and I agree with you that he would have bowled his full quota, probably 120 का 150 हो जाता. I agree with you that thing. लेकिन यार कम से कम अपने कोटे की तो बॉलिंग करो पूरी. I mean, you just
absolutely. मतलब यूपी में अगर आप ट्रैवल किए
हो, ज्योति, the problem with this entire thing, be it Congress, देखो एक सीधी सी बात है समझने की, जिसको जो समझ जाए. You want to defeat Modi, Amit Shah, and even go further, Yogi and everything, you have to work harder than them. Mamta managed to defeat them because she worked harder than them. Kejriwal managed to defeat them in Delhi because he worked harder than them. You just cannot lie down and wait कि default में पड़े रहेंगे, public आएगी और मुंह में लड्डू डाल के जाएगी, वो जमाने politics के लद गए. You know, since in the last 7 years, Jyoti, BJP has lost half the elections in this country. Have we ever discussed that? In the top 10 list of the chief ministers in our India Today MOTN survey, there was only one BJP chief minister in the top 10. That was Himanta Biswa Sarma. 9 belonged to the opposition camp. How did those 9 manage to win? How are they getting better rating? Because they are being proactive. They are working harder on the ground, keeping in mind that they have a huge deficit of leadership at the central level.
ये जो हम लोग कहते हैं कांग्रेस पार्टी के बारे में, राहुल गांधी, प्रियंका गांधी की हाथ पे हाथ धर के बैठे रहते हैं. चलिए इस दफा प्रियंका हैज वर्कड हार्ड, तो अखिलेश कैन आल्सो बी अक्यूज्ड ऑफ द सेम कि वो भी हाथ पे हाथ धर के बैठे हुए थे. देयर इज अ सर्टेन एंटाइटलमेंट.
पिताजी की कराई हुई एफडी कितने दिन चलेगी? ये अब सीधी सी बात है, अगर आप बहुत दन्ना सेठ के इकलौते बच्चे भी हैं तो पिताजी की कराई हुई, दादा दादी की, नानी की बड़ी हुई कराई हुई एफडीज जितनी भी हैं कितने दिन चलेगी? अगर नमूना देखना है तो आप राहुल जी को देख लीजिए ना. आप कुछ तो जोड़ोगे, बाप दादे की कमाए हुए उस पैसे में कुछ तो आप ऐड करोगे. अगर कुछ नहीं ऐड कर सकते, so as per my one very dear friend who happens to be money, I'm not in the caste slur, but he is an IIM Bangalore pass out. And he once said to me about doing a startup and anything, he said, Yashwant, तुम्हारे पास में कुछ था नहीं ना, तुमने स्टार्टअप किया because you don't have fear of losing. हमारे पास में बाप दादा का इतना है कि हमारी आधे प्राण निकले रहते हैं कि इसमें कम ना हो जाए. अरे बाबा, लेकिन एटलीस्ट प्राण तो निकलते हैं उसके कि कम ना हो जाए. Do something about it. If you cannot add it, at least retain that. What I'm simply trying to say, I mean, I'm not trying to create, I'm not taking credit away from any opposition leader. Let's be honest with that. Yes, Akhilesh did but he came out too late. Yeah. He was supposed to be on the ground when the COVID mayhem was going on. He was supposed to be on the ground when the momentum against the BJP could have been built. You cannot build the momentum. You cannot come to the batting crease and the 19th over when the strike rate is 50. You have only 6 balls. You can only hit 6 sixes. That's about it. And you can pray to God that the other guy also bowls 6 no balls and you get 6 free hits. That doesn't work. I mean, it is hypothetical situation, it works, but doesn't work in the ground in the practical way. And I have one more thing just to add, you know our friends in media, Jyoti. How many of them called and how many of them discussed the things with me and you all the time? मैंने बोला भी था, मैंने off the record बोला था, मैं on the record अब बोल सकता हूँ because the results are out. मैं भी घबरा गया था यार. एक बार जब when I said that BJP Samajwadi Party is 22 to 35 and now it is plateauing in 35, I started getting called from all the many. I will not name them, but even in editor, senior editor, यशवंत तुम ना अपना डेटा ठीक से पढ़ नहीं पा रहे हो. okay, data मेरा है, मैं नहीं पढ़ पा रहा हूँ. You are happily agreeing to my data when I said Sabha was getting from 20 to 35. But now I am telling you, they are getting plateaued at 35. You are disagreeing to it. अब ये बच्चे का कोई कंपास बॉक्स थोड़ी ना लीनियर इक्वेशन का कि स्केल निकाली और बिल्कुल लाइन खींच दी कि वो 35 पहुंचा है तो 45 पहुंच गया है. अरे बाबा ऐसे नहीं होता. Please look into the data. It doesn't work that way. You know, and I genuinely believe that big number of our friends in media, Jyoti, have started to put up their wish or what they feel
The wishful thinking about BJP
thinking
and
as the actual thing which is not happening on the ground.
That's right.
Let's be fair about that. And that, as long as on an earlier show, by the way, one of the anchors said to me that BJP did not win because of the delivery. Because Yogendra said to him that BJP won because of the Hindu-Muslim polarization. And I can say this on record. As long as the opposition leaders of the India keep on saying this, they are not going to defeat the BJP. And I said leader because Yogenji is now a politician, full-fledged politician. You know, he was on my side of the table. But as long as you are not accepting and, you know, giving credit where due, that they won because of the delivery, because of the things which are, yes, BJP unabashedly does the communal politics. I'm not saying that. Even in this campaign, because they were so, I don't know why they were so low on the confidence level that they are going to win. They did for a short formula. कि यार कुछ गड़बड़ लग रहा है तो होता है ना भैया short formula पकड़ो हिंदू मुसलमान. They did not really need it. But to accept and to say as an opposition leader that BJP won because of communal polarization, I think that is something which the opposition leaders have to pull it out from their head. कि नहीं, बीजेपी इस समय इंदिरा जी के फॉर्मूले पे चल रही है, गरीबी हटाओ, सोशल वेलफेयरिज्म लाओ और वो गरीब उसको वोट दे रहा है और इसलिए वो जीत रही है. If they accept it, they will figure it out.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold your thought for one last question, both Yashwant and Rahul. But before that, Professor Jodhka, the question of the Congress party. Now, do you feel that Punjab has now said Tata bye-bye to the Congress? जो पुराने वाले दिन थे Operation Blue Star में, जिसमें you know that after Indira Gandhi and Operation Blue Star, then she was assassinated. Amrinder Singh left the party. I mean, I'm not going to rehash the old politics, but the question is this a new phase now beginning for Punjab? Is the Congress party over and done? Is this a message to the Congress ki boss, aapka jo decimation hai, it's almost complete, and that you have to also attempt to revive yourself, and should Punjab be a new battleground?
I don't think that should be the case. I mean, see, I think the point that Rahul was making, a question of moment, we don't really know how politics in future would shape up and the kind of leadership that would emerge from ground.
Achha, tell me about Amrinder Singh. Why did Amrinder lose? Why did Amrinder lose Patiala? Fine, he would have, you know, he may not have won the election, etc. But why does the former Maharaja Patiala lose Patiala?
Badal's lost. Senior Badal lost. Senior Badal was actual politician. Amrinder is Raja only. So why would Amrinder not lose? Junior Badal lost. Sidhu lost. Come on, Sidhu is kind of, ever since he started contesting election, he never lost. Channi lost from both constituencies. I mean, why should one think about Amrinder separately? Amrinder was not a political force this time at all. Congress was. Channi was. Badal still are, and they would be. It's not like you can't write them off. I think, yes, it has become tripolar. I don't think there is a fourth player in Punjab politics at this moment. So AAP is going to be there, and we don't really know what would happen to AAP in Punjab, looking at the last,
So what happens to the Congress party now in Punjab? What happens to it?
I think what would happen to Congress party elsewhere? It is a national party, and it depends on, Congress party still has a kind of, organization which no other national party has apart from BJP. And it depends on many other factors, many other, political processes, local level processes. It's not only that parties come from above, parties also come from below. And when that moment comes and when, teams begin to pick up and suddenly, West Indies becomes a bad team and some other team, Pakistan suddenly revives itself and defeats India and defeats many other top teams. So I think this is something like that. I think Yashwant also said it's increasingly a competitive game. And in competitive game, chances of revival are much higher than in the kind of ancestral game. So far, Congress party has been ancestral, but it can enter competitive politics And in democracy, that seems to be the only way out now. Indian democracy at some level has become much stronger on ground. And it is not, again, as I agree with Yashwant, that communal polarization does work, caste does work. But if you think one formula would work and that you see you through always, that doesn't work. You have to be kind of close to the ground and keep innovating, keep working with people. And people, the poorest of the poor, women who are not even visible, whom even trackers don't go and contact, and you have to be in touch with them and you have to connect with them. You have to understand them. You have to kind of figure out what would appeal to them tomorrow, what would appeal to them, next year. So
in their own language also.
Yeah, in their own language, and constantly be there. You can't be in Delhi or you can't be in Lucknow and then still think that we can do politics in India, which I think on the whole is good for India. That's how democracy ought to work. And the democracy cannot be now, of Maharajas and of Zamindars. It has to be of some kind of, workers who are on ground, who are working with people, whatever their ideology might be. And that is something which is coming out from Punjab very clearly. Earlier, there were Maharajas, there were big landlords, and we call them Ranas and Rajas. Now, Ranas and Rajas are gone. They will not be able to do politics. It will have to be competitive politics.
The politics of entitlement is, I think, the people of Punjab have sent that message. Last question to you, Rahul and Yashwant. Rahul, you first. Yogi Adityanath question: what happens to Yogi ji? In the last time when we had this discussion, I think you said if the BJP comes below 275, then the question of leadership arises. Do you think that this is?
No, I didn't say that. The reason I didn't say that because Yashwant said that.
Maybe it was
Yashwant. What happens to Yogi? I don't know. I think with this kind of victory, it would be hard to deny him the chief minister's position. Okay. The second, whether now, like from here to national level, Yogi still need a lot of evolution as a politician, as an administrator, as a communicator. And that's a very, very long road. So anyone who thinks now Yogi becomes automatic choice to lead BJP post Modi is a very, very far-fetched calculation. The politics is very ruthless game. And in next 5 years, it will basically also decide what the future holds for Yogi.
Right. I'm not, Yashwant, the question to you is not that Yogi ji is going to inherit the Modi empire, but the question is about Amit Shah. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, former BJP president, very, very powerful leader in the party. He has gone all out and he has helped Yogi ji win the state. Now, what is the relationship like between these two men and how do you see it going forward?
No, I agree with Rahul that yes, this does catapult Yogi into the long list of number twos in the BJP. Okay. Just because he has won UP second time does not naturally make him the successor of Narendra Modi as the next prime ministerial candidate. For a simple reason, we have seen this happen earlier in terms of Kalyan Singh ji when Vajpayee was the PM, and we know where it landed eventually. And let's not forget the fact that the earlier three mandates were delivered in the name of Modi. And this mandate also, I would stick my neck out on this one, still has a larger mandate to Modi's name. Yes, Yogi was a supplementary factor, but the base factor of BJP's voting in Uttar Pradesh still happens and remains to be Mr. Narendra Modi. And that is the important thing to understand because the way the campaign was going haywire, the way Prime Minister and Amit Shah had to put them 200% in within the game of Uttar Pradesh.
You think the campaign was going haywire?
I definitely feel that campaign was going haywire at one point of time. If that would not have been the case, then BJP would have chopped off the tickets of 100 plus MLAs. There were sentiments on that. And yes, I'm not denying what Mr. Yogi has achieved. I'm not denying that he has created a cult and a brand among the BJP hardcore Hindutva sympathizers. I'm not denying that he did not deliver on the law and order branding. No, I'm not denying all those things. But as Rahul said, to be in the league, to be the next prime minister, you need a lot more than that, all this. If delivering a state 2 times is concerned, then probably Shivraj Singh Chauhan has delivered it 4 times. Let's not forget that there are many other tick marks that Mr. Yogi has to go through. He doesn't come from an RSS backdrop. There is still nobody in the RSS who can say कि मैं बोलूंगा योगी को आओ और कल वो नागपुर पहुंच जाएगा. ऐसा नहीं होने वाला है. मोदी के साथ में हो जाएगा. Even though Modi is like pecking order right here, but RSS still has a kind of a moral sway on that okay, if Sarsang Chalak calls, then probably Mr. Modi will go and meet him. RSS doesn't have that kind of confidence in there.
And what about with Amit Shah? What about his relationship with Amit Shah?
I think Amit Shah still remains de facto number 2 within the BJP's pecking order. Rajnath Singh ji remains, if you are calling from people from Uttar Pradesh, Rajnath Singh within the RSS framework still happens to be the most senior contender in post-Modi scenario. There is Nitin Gadkari. You need the Bombay club. You need that kind of financial muscle to run the campaign. You need to have the extra smart team around you to guide you and tell you which way, and you need to listen to them. These are, Rahul is bang on target that Yogi probably has the next 5 years actually to grow himself. Take him outside I don't want to use actually harsh word, but a very, very mediocre set of advisors and grow beyond that. Let's say what it is bluntly has to be said. He has a great potential, but he has to work really hard on that potential and learn from Mr. Modi. What was the one biggest thing, which worked against Mr. Yogi within the party? That he doesn't listen to anybody. That his complaints came from his own cabinet ministers, people who went away, that he doesn't respect me. MLAs who said that he doesn't even give time. We can say everything about Mr. Modi, whatever we may like or dislike him, but you can tell from all the people who know him that he is a very patient listener. He carried Sushma Swaraj ji with him. He is still carrying Nitin Gadkari and Rajnath ji with him. So Mr. Yogi, in order to become Modi number 2, has to learn a lot from Mr. Modi. And that process or that journey starts today, I guess. If he can learn, if he can evolve, he can definitely, nobody can say never in politics, and winning UP twice definitely puts up a great tick mark on him to be in that leadership league. But he has to learn and evolve if he wants to become Modi 2.0.
Absolutely. We'll have to leave it there. Yashwant Deshmukh, Rahul Verma, Professor Surinder, Jodhka. That's why I think I love talking to you, political analysts, because not just that I learn so much, but that all of you are willing to be very open and to say it like it is. But thank you for this discussion and for your analysis of the elections today and for joining me on the print debate. Thank you.